Brand Director of John Hancock. Please welcome Kate.
Hello. Thanks, Ross. Am I on? Great. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yes. All right. Awesome. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about John Hancock and our Life Comes Next campaign. But before I do that, I, like Nick, will tell you about my getting here adventure. So the good news is in Boston, the TSA fully recognizes the Massachusetts license, so that's good. So it was the morning, yesterday morning, woke up, super rainy day in Boston, really cold, trudged around the block with the dog, really excited to call up my Uber. He came within the promised 3 minutes, get in. I live really close to the airport, but I said, can you stop at 601 Congress Street on your way to Logan? And he said, oh, sure, the insurance company? And I was like, oh, no. Okay. So that kind of sets the stage for what I'm going to talk about for a few minutes here. I promise I'm not going to talk to you about all of our great services and products for too long, but it kind of helps tell the story of how we've stayed true to our heritage as a brand, but also innovated through the years. So John Hancock, 150-year-old insurance company based out of Boston. We're actually owned by Manulife Financial, so a big Canadian financial services player. And when that acquisition happened in 2008, there was quite a big valuation put on the John Hancock brand. So we operate as John Hancock in the United States, and we've maintained that brand. And then in Canada and the rest of the world, so Asia primarily, we operate as Manulife. So if you see that, if you're in other parts of the world, we're all kind of one company, two different brands. So yes, insurance is a big part of what we do. We have a full suite of life insurance and long-term care insurance products. And we also do a lot in the wealth space. So we have a large 401k product offering and then a large mutual fund offering. But we haven't stood still in those areas. So on the insurance side of the house, we recently introduced a new product called Vitality, which essentially is, we call it life insurance celebrating life. But traditionally, life insurance had been something you buy, you never want to use it, you just kind of pay your premium and set it and forget it. And this is a way, I give you guys a preview, to really engage our customers with life insurance. So you essentially get rewarded and you get premium discounts if you're healthy. If you maintain a healthy BMI, if you are, you have great blood pressure, showing that you're kind of doing things in your life to stay healthy, you get a premium discount and some rewards. On the investment side of the house, we have a really unique, what we call our manager of managers model. So essentially, all of our funds are managed by the best asset managers we can find. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're John Hancock or Manulife asset managers. They certainly can be. But there's people all over the world, and we'll find the best manager for our funds. Additionally, we recently introduced an ETF product. So once again, kind of responding to what the marketplace is demanding and what our customers really want. So a unique challenge with John Hancock is that you cannot just come into our building at 601 Congress Street and say, hey, I'd like to buy an insurance policy. If you did, we probably would figure it out. But in general, we operate through third-party intermediaries. So you work with your financial advisor. You say, hey, I need some life insurance. Ideally, we want them to say, oh, John Hancock's great. Or you're going to your financial advisor, and they recommend one of our mutual funds to you. So it's a unique challenge in terms of media messaging because we need our advisors to feel really good about John Hancock, recommend our products to customers. But when they do, we need our customers to associate, great, I'm really comfortable with their brand, I know they do good stuff. So it's kind of a unique challenge in that dual audience that we're trying to hit. So the campaign I'm going to talk about today primarily was a consumer audience, but certainly there's a halo effect to our advisors as well. So that's one of our challenges, but the bigger challenge really is our $12 billion challenge. And I'm sure many of the people in this room can relate to this, but we in financial services compete in a really crowded, cluttered market. So last year, the annual spend in financial services, which includes credit cards, banks, insurance, $12 billion. That's a lot of money. I promise you we are not anywhere close to being a player in this space in terms of one of the largest spenders. So really big challenge. So not only on the dollar side, but on the messaging side. There's just turn on your TV, you're seeing financial services commercials all day long on your mobile devices right now. You're probably getting some ads for them. It's just very cluttered. It's really hard to stand out. And it's frankly been a really big challenge for us as a brand. In addition, we have some really big players in our category. These are just a few of them. There's many more. And through the years, we've traditionally been outspent 5 to 10 times by these people, by these brands. So, it's a big challenge. We're not going to get huge media budgets anytime soon, so we really have to be smarter about how we spend our money, and I know many people in this room are in the same place. We're all under pressure to spend efficiently, effectively, and really prove that our spending is making a lot of sense. So how have we done this? So at John Hancock, for the past 30 years, we've partnered with Hill Holliday Trillia as our agency, so both on the creative and the media side of the house. And that's a really long time for a brand agency partner relationship, and it's really because it works. And both on the brand side of the house and on the agency side of the house, everyone's really committed to the brand and what the brand means and staying really disciplined and true to our brand mandates. So traditionally, our competitors had kind of been in that lower left-hand quadrant. So really strong, and we're big, and no one can defeat us. And John Hancock, for the last 30 years, has kind of been in this upper right-hand quadrant. So we've really always talked about the customer and what the customer is worried about, what keeps them up at night, what are the real conversations they're having, with their family and their friends. We know nobody's saying, oh, I wonder, what exactly right fund I should get, but I want to have enough money for when I retire, or I want to send my kids to college, or whatnot. So the real human conversations have really been important to us as a brand. We've also really focused on being really honest and empathetic, which kind of mirrors some of our earlier conversations here. We kind of tell it like it is as a brand, and we don't sugarcoat a lot of things. So we've really tried to stay in that quadrant. But kind of a new challenge for us is a lot of our competitors are moving towards that quadrant. So no longer is it effective to say, we're so strong, we're so big. You need to talk about your customer. We all know that. We need to understand what our customers do and what they care about. So our competitors are starting to encroach on that quadrant, which is definitely a new challenge for us and one that we've been addressing in the past couple of years. So in terms of that John Hancock brand, what I was talking about, so the John Hancock brand captures the truth in what's important to consumers and advisors. This includes the issues they struggle with, the anxieties that keep them up at night, the goals they strive for, and the values they believe in. It is our demonstration of understanding their fears and aspirations that enables John Hancock to be a source of hope and a brand to trust. So once again, we've really stayed true to that promise through the years. So I'm just going to spend a couple minutes showing you some of the work, our legacy work that we've done in the past 30 years through our relationship with Hill Holliday Trillia in terms of kind of demonstration of this brand promise. Cue the video.
Hey, Catherine, I want to tell you something very, very important. Daddy got a raise. That means I can buy you a sandbox, a sliding board. What do you think? You think we should put some of it away? What do you know about the stock market? I love you, little Jenny Catherine. Guess what? Daddy got a raise.
You owe it to your parents, for they brought you into this world. You owe it to your children, for you did the same for them. But the day may arrive when both debts come due, when you may have no choice but to borrow from your own retirement to educate a child or care for a parent. Into whose eyes can you look and say you just can't help? For in both, you will surely see your own.
Either going to be a singer, a dancer, a An actress, a ASPCA agent, a veterinarian, or stop. That's it. She's going to be a teacher, a singer, or a lawyer. She talks a lot. What? I don't want to be a lawyer. But you talk a lot, so you could be good at it. Ow, stop.
Okay, so those are just a few examples of kind of how we've executed the brand through the years, and hopefully you'll see those are kind of those real life conversations, real people, real issues that people struggle with, and really tried to stay true to that. So kind of that first big challenge, being outspent a lot, and then our competitors kind of encroaching to that more human, customer-centric messaging that I think is an area all brands across industries are really in right now. But there's another challenge as well, which is that darn goldfish. So I'm sure many of you have seen this stat, but it still fascinates me. The human attention span has decreased to 8 seconds. That's as of 2013, so it's 1 second less than a goldfish. I read the article related to this, and it said in 2000, the human attention span was 12 seconds. So we're really not doing well, guys. This is not good. So we're all constantly all over the place, right? Like our eyes are here, there, everywhere. I'm sure even right now we're all balancing work emails and real life stuff and trying to be present here. Our attention span is everywhere. It's a reality. There's nothing we can do to fix that. So we need to respond to that in terms of our media strategy and our messaging strategy. So how bombarded are we really by media? We love this quote. It just kind of says, yep, there's a lot of media going on and there's a lot of messaging going on, but it's all of our fault. So it's something that we all have to respond to and deal with. We've never been exposed to more media than in this day and age. The clutter makes everything invisible. Of the thousands of messages we take in each day, the average person only retains 2. The irony is that it's advertisers who have made this mess, and we spend our entire careers battling the clutter we have created. So lots of clutter, no one can argue with that. It's a reality that we've created. So how do we address this? So at John Hancock, we knew this was a reality for us. It really became a reality a few years ago, and we knew we had to address that. So we started planning our 2014 campaign, and really through our partnership with Hill Holiday Trillia, dove into what are consumers doing? What is our target mass affluent consumer? So that's someone that's 35 to 64, 100K household income, $250,000 in investable assets. How are they spending their time? How are they using media? And we saw, they really are still watching television. People are still watching television. I mean, the numbers aren't necessarily increasing, but they're watching TV. But our time with mobile devices is increasing rapidly. So we're all aware that this means we're doing at least 2 things at once all the time, if not more. So depending on your demographic, the percentages change a little bit about the percentage of people watching television with a second screen. But I think we can all agree it's pretty high. I know for myself, I'm always half watching one thing, half watching another, hoping I don't burn the house down with whatever I have in my oven, kind of that common, and I'm sure all of you are doing the same thing as well. So we knew this second screen behavior is nothing we were going to combat, so we had to accept it, and it would really take advantage of this behavior. We also, like I said, we're not spending a lot. We have about 0.12% market share in media spend, so we're small. So our message really has to break through, and we have to make that 30-second TV investment last a lot longer than 30 seconds. So our goal with the campaign I'm going to talk to you about was to turn that 30-second engagement via television or pre-roll into at least a 3-minute brand experience. So that was our goal going into this campaign. So in 2014, after a lot of research into media habits, budget research, seeing what resonated with our audience, we created our Life Comes Next campaign. So let us help you prepare for all the possibilities, both expected and unexpected. So how this campaign worked was we created in 14 4 different spots. So they were essentially 30-second spots. I'll show you an example in a little bit, but once again, they were very real. We don't use supermodels. They were in real life places. The cars people were driving were pretty much, a car that our target consumer would drive. The kitchen that we shot one of the spots in a kitchen. It was, a real kitchen. There was no fancy Viking appliances or anything anywhere. So tried to make things really real. We shot them on film, so also, once again, like very beautiful and true. So staying really true to that brand that I talked about earlier and having these real human conversations. But what we did is we started these real kind of human conversations and scenarios and essentially used a cliffhanger approach. So you'd see the 30 seconds, and then from there, let's see here. Here's all the spots we've created to date. They would just end abruptly. And if you wanted to see what happened next, we asked you to go to HancockNext.com, which was the digital experience we built out, which had the endings for all of these scenarios. So what would happen when you would get to HancockNext.com is you would see each of these spots. So in 14, we launched the ride, the knock, the meeting, and the call. You would kind of see all of them. Here's the digital experience homepage. And you could click on any of those. This is the 2015 version, but you could click on any of the spots, and then there would be 3 potential endings for each scenario. So, one ending might be related to college savings. One ending might be related to a family having to put, their father in a nursing home. One might have to be someone telling, their spouse, like, we're running out of money and we don't have enough money for retirement. So all these these intro conversations could go in any direction. So we were asking the consumer to come and see where they would go. So, a consumer could watch one ending, they could watch all 3, they could watch, multiple, and from there they were directed, if they're interested at the issue that was being addressed, they could learn more about the challenge. They could learn more about saving for college. They could learn more about planning for retirement or planning for the unexpected, which you'll see are kind of those bottom calls to action. And then we also obviously had a click through at the end of each scenario with the related issue if you wanted to learn more. Consumers could also read, articles, third-party articles related to these topics. We've done some really interesting content partnerships where it's not all John Hancock messaging. It's here's like the real issues and here's how real people have dealt with these issues. We've done a lot with content as well. And lastly, a lot was social. So, people could share them, they could talk about them, they could engage with us. So essentially the big lesson here, it was all about choice. So sequential storytelling, very, very important. I think we're all, guilty of doing or at least I'm really guilty of some good Netflix binges because you just want to see what happens, but it's up to us to kind of give all of those choices, but let the consumer define the journey. So we did kind of define how we wanted them to go through this journey, but we also gave them the choice. If they wanted to watch just one ending, fine. If they wanted to watch a bunch, great. So that was a big learning for us, is that we succeeded because we did give them that choice and relevancy. So this video that I'm going to play next kind of just talks you through one example of how the whole experience worked.
Hey, you got a second to look at this?
Yeah, Brian just wants to meet with me for a minute. But I'll come right back, okay?
Great.
You want to see me?
Upon arriving at HancockNext.com, visitors see that there are actually 4 stories to view: the ride, the meeting, the call, and the knock. More importantly, they will learn that there are actually 3 possible endings to each of these stories.
You want to see me?
Alan, hey, come on in. Grab the door if you would and have a seat. So, Alan, we need your opinion, actually. We are in the middle of a search for a new senior vice president. And we were wondering, what's your opinion of you?
Well, I would recommend me very highly.
So, we're good? That was easy, huh?
Right, thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
At the end of each story, visitors are left with a call to action that leads them to more information about how John Hancock can help prepare for that very situation. The results have been overwhelmingly positive. And as we hoped, people have had plenty to say.
Okay, so in case you were wondering what happened to Alan in the other two scenarios, he did unfortunately lose his job in one of them. And the other one, he was retiring, and it was a big party, and everyone was excited. So don't always get too afraid when your boss calls you into his office. So in terms of success, the video kind of talked to some of these, but I'll just give a little bit more detail into some of our success to date. So we've driven almost 2 million visits to Hancock Next, which for us is huge. That's 2 million visitors spending real time with our content. So both our video content and the related articles, the related social content, all of that through their visit to our digital destination. So visitors spend an average of 4 minutes and 20 seconds with our content, which earlier I said our goal was to turn that 30 seconds into 3 minutes. That's huge. Having a consumer spend over 4 minutes with your brand is a huge win. It was a big win for us. We're actually going back into market with the campaign in a month or so, and I'm hoping to see that same level of engagement again. In terms of video views, so that's over 17 million, that comes from both time spent on Hancock Next and then work we've done through partnership with some digital distribution vendors. So done a lot of work with Sports Illustrated through the years, and so they had a new platform they introduced in 2014 called SI Wire. So once again, we were kind of first to market, the first sponsor there, so leveraging those pre-roll capabilities were really big for us. We did a really interesting partnership with a company called Alfonso, and they're essentially a TV listening technology where if somehow your mobile device can see that you heard an ad, and they will serve you kind of the related backend on your phone as well. A company called Adherent we work with quite a bit, and they're a great partner for us as well in terms of mobile targeting and a lot of success with our audience there. Those are just a few. We have some longstanding partnerships with Forbes, for example, in terms of content, and they've been a great partner to us. A lot of sports sponsorships. You'll see us a lot on college football, on NFL. So we do a lot with sports partners as well in terms of getting those videos delivered if you actually did not come to Hancock Next. So more than 55% of our traffic came from TV. So TV still works. It's very effective. It's very expensive, but it is very effective. But the thing is now the TV viewer we're finding is a selective TV viewer. So they're choosing what they watch, they're choosing how they engage, they're choosing how they spend their time with one screen and another screen. So just being responsive to that selective TV viewer is really, really important and was important in terms of making this campaign a success. So in terms of social, this was the first campaign that we had a true social media integration with. So across all of our channels, we made sure that our messaging was very much on par with Hancock Next. We did a lot in terms of delivering video, which did really well on social, but it really was our first example of true integration, and the results in social in terms of impressions and engagement levels spoke for themselves that this was really our audience the messaging really resonated with them, and we saw huge growth there, easy to track numbers. So we were really, really excited about that. So our parent company in Canada, Manulife, they actually leveraged a lot of these spots in Canada as well for their Are You Ready campaign, which was great, and we were so excited that they were just as excited about the campaign as we were and the results that we were seeing. And they drove to a different digital destination, which was branded for Manulife, and talk about their unique services and offerings, but using the same concept and the same creative, and that was a great partnership. And then lastly, search was really big for us as well. So 43% of the users searching for Hancock Next actually clicked through to the site. And based on the research we did, that was actually 4 times the search benchmark. So really, really exciting. And search is still very, very important and really matters, and it mattered quite a bit for this campaign. So with any success as well, we got some social engagement. I always like to share the funny stuff because I think a lot of people in this room can agree that we all have to kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit. So these are some of our favorite tweets, beyond the ones that were very complimentary, which I showed in the video, but I like to show the other real tweets too, in the spirit of staying on brand. One of my favorites is the upper right. Saw a John Hancock commercial that didn't have an ending, and it said to go to the website to see the ending. I watched the ending. I'm a loser. There's a lot of losers out there based on the stats we saw, so we're all good. Some of the other ones here, let's see. I must be getting old. I'm dying to know what happens next in that John Hancock commercial. Dad, you're gonna die soon. John Hancock life insurance commercial. So, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, like these were making fun of our campaign, but people were still engaging and talking about us. And so that's huge. So in terms of learnings, certainly quite a few learnings along the way. I'd say the biggest one that's actually not on this slide is your appetite for risk. So certainly this campaign was built with a lot of research, a lot of testing. It's not like this just came up out of thin air, but it was a risk. Like, you're gonna spend all this money on TV media without having any real message in it for people. Like, that was asking a lot from our leadership. And so they were willing to take the journey with us, and we took a leap of faith with this campaign in terms of the strategy. We knew people are on second screen. We knew the creative was really, really compelling, and that was huge here. It had to be that cliffhanger approach where people actually wanted to see the ending. But appetite for risk, and I think we all struggle with this. Like, you can't just do what always works because then you're always behind. So taking a risk, taking that leap of faith is huge and really is a big part of the success of this campaign. And it was a risk for us as a brand. It was a risk for our agency. It was a risk all around, and a risk, frankly, that paid off with great rewards. So tech support is critical. I talked a lot about the digital destination that we built, and we did that in partnership between our in-house IT team and our team at Hill Holiday Trillia. So great partnership, building the digital destination, lots of late night phone calls, lots of stress, lots of cursing, but we got it done, which is awesome. And we premiered the spots in 2014 on Thursday Night Football. So seems like forever ago, but if anyone remembers, that game was a Baltimore Ravens game, and when the Ray Rice scandal broke. So there were a lot of eyes on the NFL that day. People were curious, is Roger gonna say anything? It was a Ravens game. So NFL football, we all know, really always delivers big audiences, but this was gonna be really big for us. So super excited, we had a spot, a lot of people were gonna see it. I'm on my couch. People are wondering why I said I was staying home to watch the game. And the spot comes on, and about 30 seconds later, I had my own second screen experience when the site crashed. So the good news is the campaign worked. The not so good news is, in terms of benchmarking the number of impressions to visits, our impression to visit benchmark was 10 times better than we were expecting, and the site just couldn't handle the traffic. But it was a really good example of how everyone just was on the phone all night and figured it out. Our IT team was awesome. They figured it out very quickly. We knew what went wrong. We knew what we had to do better next time. Our partners at Hill Holiday Trillia were great in supporting us on the social media side of the house. I shared one of the kind of funny tweets earlier with someone saying, with the website crashing, John Hancock knows what happens when life comes next now, or something like that. But it was a real issue, it was a real struggle as a brand, but technology is huge as we create all these second screen experiences. So partnering in-house, partnering with your agencies, partnering with all of your distribution channels is really, really important, and being really transparent and being willing to kind of jump in when things aren't going well, because like technology, as great as it is not foolproof, as any of us know. So social is always evolving. I spoke earlier about how this was our really true first integrated social campaign in terms of our advertising work. And so we constantly were changing that. We work towards reach, we work towards engagement. We've done a bunch of different things in terms of social. Even opportunities on social are always are always evolving. And in terms of that second screen experience, a lot of that time is spent with social channels. So for example, during the NFL, we work with Twitter and we do their Twitter TV platform. So we're sending Hancock-related tweets to people who, based on who they follow on Twitter, how they engage on Twitter, are probably watching the game. So that's a really unique way that we've worked with social. Through Facebook, we've done a lot of video distribution. Once again, a big success for us. And it definitely proves to be worth the investment, because Facebook, in terms of video, delivers. And lastly, Life Comes Next has legs. So the campaign, as I mentioned, will be back in market the end of March. So if you're an NHL hockey fan or a PGA golf fan, you'll see a lot of it there. And we're going to try new things. We're going to work with new content partners. We're going to obviously work with a lot of the partners that have been to be successful for us to date. And we're going to evolve the messaging. We're going to keep seeing, we're constantly tracking what our consumers are doing and what kind of content they're engaging with and how they're doing it. And we're going to react to that so they can still have that choice and relevancy. But at the same time, we can evolve the journey, and hopefully they'll want to come back for more. So in closing here, just to kind of bring this all full circle, staying true to the brand has been really, really important to us through the years, and allowed us to kind of launch this new campaign that stayed true to all of our, trust through truth brand messaging. But all of our media has really evolved. We've been innovative, we've taken risks, we've understanding how the consumer landscape has really changed in terms of how they digest media and what they're looking for. So our promise in created work stands the test of time. What we created in 1985 is as true today, and vice versa. While our strategy, executions, and channels have evolved, our commitment to being empathetic to the consumer remains constant. So that's Life Comes Next in a nutshell. You can see more of the spots if you go to hancocknext.com.
Great. Thank you, Kate. That was terrific. Does anybody here have any questions for Kate? We could do like one or two.
No hard ones.
Yeah, Rob.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Who was the video for that wrapped up all that data?
Oh, that was for a couple things. Our campaign has actually received quite a few awards, which is really exciting, and our agency helped us pull together that video. And it's also, frankly, a lot of internal PR in terms of this worked, it was worth the risk, it was worth the investment. I think when we ask, our leadership teams to take that leap of faith with us, especially when it comes to new strategies, new technology, we have to constantly go back to them and say, here, it worked, or in some cases, it didn't work. And so telling that story and internal PR, I think is worth everyone's time and investment in terms of managing a brand.
I have a question. After television, what digital channels had the most paid media put towards them?
In terms of paid, so we have unique kind of content partnerships. So our sports properties were probably our second biggest investment. So that's everything across Sports Illustrated Wire, NFL.com we've done work with, ESPN.com. So sports are big for us, and that's been part of our strategy for a long time. Kind of before we had a true second screen experience, we would buy TV spots, in a college football game, and then ESPN is a big college football platform. So people would be on that as well, and they'd kind of see, just like display advertising from us popping up. So this was kind of the next step in that journey of having that true surround strategy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kate. Any other questions? Okay, if not, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
That was great. I'd like to invite our last panel of the morning, questions and more. We asked Brian Botker, a longtime friend of MediaPost and founder and chief strategist of Estate 4. Once they get themselves sorted out. Thanks, Omar.
Hey, we had to alphabetize this?
Yes, you have to be alphabetized.
We're working on alphabetizing ourselves here.
All right.
It's tricky. All right, well, please welcome Brian in this panel. Thanks.
So, a couple things. We're kind of the approach here is two things. One is that figure that everyone's got really busy jobs where you're a lot of times not able to talk to colleagues and network. So part of the idea here is that it's just nice to hear what other people are doing. And so want to talk about actionable things that people can hear what other people are doing. The other thing is obviously want applicable stuff that can be taken back as well. So we're going to try to dive into some details and talk about things related to this that sort of touch on being able to take those things back with you. First, start with intros. So looking for who you are, your background, current responsibilities, and then ask everyone to kind of think a little bit about budget versus time. How much of your budget goes to different channels and how much of your time and mind space goes to different channels, because I feel that's a good way for people to understand how these guys relate to what you're doing and everything.
So I'm Amy Bartle, Director of Media and Digital Marketing for La Quinta Inns and Suites. So I handle all paid consumer-facing media except email. And to that end, between the offline and online channels, my budget splits approximately 50-50. Attention-wise, it's probably 70% in the digital or nonlinear space as it comes through.
Hi, my name is Sujin Oh. I manage the data and ad operations team at Magnetic. For those of you who have not heard of Magnetic, we are a technology company with the marketing platform where we provide ad, email, and on-site solutions. And the way we're able to power these solutions is through our unique purchase intent data that we collect across 450,000 sites, as well as shopping profiles of 250 million individuals. So we work with a lot of data across different channels while it being hubbed in a unified manner. And probably out of this panel, I'm wearing the invisible operational hat because that's been my background for over a decade now. And to answer your question about budget, it's really not really applicable to Magnetic because we work with clients' budgets. But I could answer the question about time, and I agree with Nick Wert's earlier talk that channels are going to be more table stakes. It is important for companies to integrate into these channels and have that programmatic technology integrated, but I would say what's going to set the successful companies and their growth trajectory is on the users. So we're spending a lot of time in the data management warehouse where we're putting the consumer first and then appending all of these valuable kind of data points of what they're searching for across their different devices to make it actionable.
My name's Charles Pinkerton. I'm the founding partner of Theseus Communications. I was a founding partner of Media Kitchen before and started Theseus about 2.5 years ago. We combine brand planning with media planning, which is something that I've always believed in, and are completely channel agnostic. And so that's offline and online as well. So all of our planners do brand as well as media planning and are completely integrated across channels. To answer your question, since most of our stuff is projects, I think most of our spending right now is out of home, followed by television, largely cable, and then digital and content. But about 50% of our time's on content, and about 40% of it's on digital, and the rest is in the larger spending channels.
Hi, I'm Alicia Peterson from Trillia Media. Trillia Media is actually a very new company. It's only been around for about 6 months, but it is actually Hill Holliday's media department. So we launched the company thinking that there was an opportunity for more media-only pieces of business. So we're really excited about that, but I've been at Hill for a number of years. Not as long as we've actually had the Hancock account, but so I work on Hancock with Kate. I work on some retail brands from the TJX family. But I will say, in terms of the question, in terms of where I spend the bulk of my time, so a lot of our clients do a lot of television. Probably, I would say, 75–80% of our budget actually goes to television. The remaining 25% is with social, mobile, content development, but I would absolutely say that easily 75% of my time thinking goes to more the digital channels. So a little bit unbalanced.
So is that the way it should be, or like is that? good that your time's being spent that way for all of you? It seems like it is kind of that switch. And as you look at your clients that you're dealing with, should we be putting more energy and thought into the traditional channels and dialing back on the digital, or are we doing it the right way?
I think we actually need to spend more time, because I think we're still learning with digital, and because there is so much data that's out there. I think you can get it very wrong if you're not doing your data well. And and I think it's something that's happening in the industry, where a lot of advertising now, Nick talked about it this morning, is like, I'm not going to San Francisco, so why send me that ad about San Francisco? So you can get it wrong, and I think the assumption by people now is that you are going to get it right. It's irritating now to get advertising in a digital space that doesn't target you, whereas in television you assume that most everything's not going to target you, so you don't have to spend as much time thinking about that.
And I would just say, even just, going deeper into the world of digital, we really need to invest in mobile as a specific channel. Reason for that is that's where your consumers are. I think I saw some stats that said in 2020 there's going to be 50 billion devices. So understanding how your consumers are engaging in their mobile device, and understanding how certain KPIs resound well in those type of channels is important, because the audience has definitely shifted there.
And I would just add, I think that there's a comfort level and a familiarity with television. It builds your brand, and people are accepting of that. In the digital space, there is so much reporting, and it's so trackable that it's under a ton of scrutiny. So you're constantly trying to balance taking all the reporting, and we heard a lot about this actually from the Capellas, from Charity, that there is so much data, and you're constantly getting it in, and how do you piece it all together and actually give your clients the insights that they can take action and make their campaigns better as they move forward? So I think there's tons of scrutiny, and there's tons of data, and that's, I think, again, it goes back to that level of comfort that a lot of people have with television.
Oh, all of you media sellers. There's incredible layers of fallacy in the layers of, let me grab one data point. Just as the time spent with media should equal your % of budget spent is totally wrong. There's these layers of, the reason we don't have to spend as much time and attention on television is because television is planned and delivered in a completely different manner than a digital campaign. I mean, let's be real. Unless you are a multi-million-dollar TV advertiser who is used to buying in the scatter market and adjusting your buy by week, which frankly most people don't have the money to do, your plan is about identify your audience, identify how to reach the desired audience, and then monitor. And it is just absolutely not as volatile or actionable as what we get in the digital and mobile spaces. So to that end, it takes more time because there's more opportunities. There's only so many ways you can buy TV today. My hunch is, as we move forward and TV becomes more flexible to a programmatic platform, in fact, NBC Universal in 17, 100% inventory programmatic is what they're saying they're about to announce at the upfront, because you should tell people 3 months early. But to that end, I mean, when what's been a set it and forget it linear channel becomes as flexible and mutable as what we have in the digital channels, where I can follow an audience and I can change on the fly without a significant cost impact, I think that time and attention will change. But we have to react to, if you only have 3 levers to pull, then it's going to be easier to set that course than if you have 15.
So let's stick on the theme of time. Nick, earlier today, he said, we have to be there for our customers all of the time. One, is that true? And then 2, if that is true, how do you maintain your sanity while trying to be there for your customer all of the time?
Well, for us, since everything kind of revolves around the data of the consumer or prospective consumers, real-timeness is the kind of essential piece to all of this, right? But to kind of stay sane, because I manage operations, so we're the ones actually executing in this real-time data, is, half of it is manual optimization and half of it is machine learning, right? So when you have this wealth of data, the only way you can make it actionable is if you've got some algorithm that's filtering the noise and bringing forth what's meaningful and actionable for humans to actually manually optimize. So I think that's key, and so I would encourage all of us to kind of go back. If you are data-centric or user-centric, go back to our respective companies and take an introspective look. See if you have the right talent and the technology to be able to do all of this. So you should have your own kind of ad server. Magnetic, we actually built our own, and we have cross-device attribution even before it was the year of cross-device. We have multi-touch point attribution built into the campaign management system, and have data scientist teams. So if this is your priority, let's make sure we have the investments in place.
I was just going to say, yeah, I do think it can't be 100% data, or, it's really that blend of what you described, like the art and the science. So how do you take the data that you have available, but recognize like a consumer truth or the human truth that has really been brought to life, and actually build a campaign that sort of is based on that, recognizing that consumers sort of are changing every moment, and how do you make your campaign adaptable to that, so it can't be one or the other, you really have to use them together.
Yeah, I would just add to that, and to echo that and add to that. I think we've heard the word empathy 2 or 3 times this morning already, and I think that's what's important. Yes, people are using their phones more, but it's more intimate than, say, television is, or out of home or print, and that's where it's easy to get wrong, because when it is intimate, it's much more closer to that person's feeling, and if you're with them every second of the time that they're sleeping with their phones, so to speak, I think that's where it gets irritating, and having empathy and adding value is really what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that some keys that all of you put on that come into the real life of brands is not only the empathy, but it is the human interaction, because as marvelous as our advertising and marketing campaigns across social channels can be, all of us brands know what's the #1 use of Twitter. Let's complain. The social channels are the real-time customer feedback loops of the company. They don't want to send us an email. They don't want to call. They want to reach out on their broadest platform, and they want an immediate response. So there's 2 layers there. One is the brand has to have all the capabilities there to be answering quickly rather than let things sit and fester. But the other is, if something happens in a social channel and starts to blow up, your best crafted ad that follows that post could turn into an absolute communications nightmare. So to do things without having the alerts and checks and balances in place to be able to quickly stop the best algorithm of what ad to serve next when what's happening has nothing to do with the algorithm is really important.
So on that point of empathy and the human aspect and all of that, not necessarily from a reaction standpoint, but more from a planning standpoint, from a starting point. If we're always looking at data, if we're looking so much at data and we're spending so much time on digital and all this like micro segmenting and targeting and all of that, like what do you all do to maintain empathy? Like how do you keep everyone human and not just an avatar?
Well, my whole company has been set up that way because I was a brand planner first and then became a media planner. And I think bringing the qualitative learnings from brand planning to media planning is essential. And I think it's even more essential now because of the data that we have. It's very easy to get lost in data streams and react to those without understanding why. And I think the quant tells you why something happens, and so from my perspective, you bring it in by teaching people that's what they need to do.
Well, how do you teach them?
I hire them out of school and make them.
I think for us, we do a lot of it's the research, it's the digging into the consumer. Like, we do all of that stuff. We look at the competitive, what they are doing as well. But I think we have a lot of conversations with the brand of why they've landed on certain creative platforms and decided that that's what they want to bring to life, and who are the partners that can do that with us. Like, we are very transparent with our media partners to make sure that they understand what the messages are that we're trying to get out there. So I think, really creating partnerships versus vendor relationships, like, that's what we want to build. And we want to build content with partners that's bringing to life what the brand is trying to say, and have them act on our behalf. Have them help us to monitor our campaigns. And if they notice something is going awry, they should be calling us and we should be having check-ins. So I think it's truly like monitoring, going back to, there's feelings in this as well. It can't all be automated.
So let's talk about approvals a little bit. We've got all this stuff, all this change. If we go under the assumption that part of the reason we spend all the time is because we're optimizing and adapting and all of that, you can make the argument that traditional approval processes, they're impossible, right? Like, you can't have a 3-tier approval up to X person or whatever. Well, one, is that bogus? Can you still have that? And if you can't, how do you, not what do you do, but how do you convince people who are used to making the final call to back off?
So I look at it as in when I was a kid and trying to get approval from my parents, or maybe for some it would be about your kids trying to get approval from you. And there's just the 3 main criteria that I think help get that. And it really is, first, the efficacy or your performance. Transparency, in the sense you're sharing that awareness and getting acknowledgement back of your performance. And then lastly, which is quite important, is giving some value back to the approver, right? So in the case of my parents, it might have been save of time, but in marketers, it might be all about economics, right? So the way we were able to do this at Magnetic was we have client direct or brand direct relationships where they sign up for multiple solutions. So let's say ad, email, and on-site. And what we do is we run A/B testing on all of the campaigns to show the efficacy of what we're doing. And then we also provide transparency by giving them all of the analytics they're starving for sometimes, the cross-device attribution, the multi-touch attribution, and giving them analytics builds that kind of trust factor. And then lastly, the economics is an important one. And how we do this is, if a client signed up for multiple solutions and we've ultimately helped drive a conversion, we'll only charge the client for that one-time conversion, even though we've hit that user across multiple touch points. So all 3 factors kind of help get that approval and allow us to kind of optimize and do what we do best.
And there are interesting layers to approval because within the digital marketing side, because of how quickly you can test at volume and get learnings, there's a freedom there that doesn't come with, say, a TV commercial or a print ad that more expensive, much longer lead time, much more dangerous if you get it wrong. But the interesting thing, as we all get better and as the connectivity and the consumer connectedness just multiplies exponentially in a cross-channel world, is that I almost think it's brought the need to go back to erring on the side of more approvals than less becomes more important, because now at every single second you have the opportunity to deliver a message about your brand that is potentially a bit jarring to the one they saw just previously on some different device. Not that they're in conflict or they're different, but it starts to get to the matter of, does it really feel like us? And I think that becomes more and more important the more opportunities we have to talk to customers across different platforms.
Being on the agency side, it's hard to answer with one answer, because every company has their own personalities as far as getting approvals. I do think that we are in an advertising space now where we have 8 seconds, to get something across. That and just looking at the Hancock stuff, and it was said, it took a lot of risk and a lot of bravery for the company to do that. And I think that's kind of the atmosphere that we're in, is that those companies who are willing to do that are going to succeed and actually have their advertising work rather than just run.
Yeah, and I would say I think it is like educating clients and making sure we're educated on the platforms that we're talking about, or the channels that we're trying to sell through, or the ideas we're trying to sell in, because I think, like, you know, you bring up social, that is one where it could have an amazing impact because of the potential impact that it has, like the amount of people that it has to reach through sharing, et cetera. So I think if we can educate our clients to make sure that they're just in the know of what we're talking about and make sure that they're as up to speed as we are, that they can kind of almost help us as media agencies to navigate, well, this is one that I'm going to be able to make the approval on, but this one, the potential is huge. We really need to elevate it.
So trying to tie thread of risk to experimentation a little bit, like, because I feel like there's a little parallel there. You know, how do you approach experimentation? How much budget do you put towards it? You know, you've kind of touched on it a little bit with the 50-50, you know, robot versus manual side. And then also, how do you decide when to stop experimenting? Like, because the argument could be made like, oh, I need to keep experimenting, I haven't figured it out yet. And when do you cut bait and go like, this is not worth the time and energy?
Okay, I like the last half, so I'm going to tackle on that one first. Because it's a great question, because, and I would say that there's two layers to the answer. One is for our emerging media channels, I don't think we're at a point yet that we can stop. And I'm thinking in terms of something like an Instagram or a Snapchat, where even Facebook to a certain amount, because if the platform keeps changing, then what didn't work in the past probably still won't work, but now there's a new capability. So I would say to that layer is you continue testing as long as there's new potential capabilities and you can afford to test. The second layer is when do you stop, is when you've tested, it doesn't work, and there's nothing new happening in the platform, or it's not the platform that your consumers are on or responding to. You know, we've gone the route of we do custom media consumption studies on our and our competitor guests, because the third-party data that's out there just is not detailed enough to drive an actionable media plan. So we've gone to custom information to find that. You know, and in, I know some companies I've heard have set percent for budgets. With our world, it's, you know, I try to carve out what, you know, in what can be an amount of spend that can provide a robust amount of testing across, you know, at least a couple, hopefully a lot more than that, and we just look for opportunities throughout the year. It really becomes that's a great opportunity, that's a great idea, that's a great price, let's go. And then you just repeat what works.
And so we are constantly experimenting within new channels as well as existing channels, the partners within these channels. And there's a bit of an exercise or a discipline that I felt works really well when experimenting on there. And that really is probably the only time I'll say a siloed approach is the right approach. But you take your individual channels and look at the conversion measurements, if that's what you're trying to go, that's your ultimate goal, individually, and you set that as a benchmark. And when you introduce these new channels or partners, what you do is overlay your cross-device audience, so it might be your customers, and measure the incremental uplift in the overall conversion. So, you know, there's like a mathematical approach to how to value these new channels or these mediums by doing this sort of exercise.
I agree with Amy. I think the channels are changing so much that you can't stop experimenting now. When they stop changing, we can probably stop experimenting because we'll know what works, and we don't know now. We don't have a set percentage that we recommend for clients, and again, it's those clients who are willing to take risks that it's a higher percentage of what it is that we're able to do. So there's really not a set percentage that we're using.
Yeah, I would say we sort of follow the same approach, but we follow we call it the now, new, next model. So it's like, what should we definitely be doing now that's proven that we don't want to walk away from? What can we sort of test now that's in the marketplace, that's really made a case that meets our objectives? And then next, is there something that's coming? And, we don't really say X amount of dollars are definitely going to go to it, because it kind of depends on what the opportunity is. And I would also 100% agree with what you guys are saying when it comes to testing and experimenting. The channels are changing so rapidly that what we did last year is not necessarily the same thing that's in the market this year. So I think we're always sort of evolving. But I do think there is a point that kind of says, whether it's Facebook and the brand studies that they have, it's like, how many times do you have to do those? Because sometimes they're more work than actually, you do 3 of them, you keep getting the same results. That probably there is a point that you say, we did get that.
Couldn't you make the argument that traditional channels are changing just as much as the new ones?
I think from a television standpoint, you brought up the point of NBC, absolutely they are trying to adapt with the times. When we think of television these days, we no longer think of it as television on your set-top box that's in your living room. It's how are you delivering video? So 100% our consumers, they're consuming, YouTube and Google and, just running pre-roll. So that should be a part of the plan. Absolutely. I think really streaming radio, it's all evolving.
Well, and that's actually a really interesting piece, because as internally, when we're talking about the various ways that are happening on video, there is online video, which are things like pre-roll. There's streaming, watch ESPN, CBS Sport, live sports events or live events are streaming. TV online, Hulu, the rest. I don't talk about stuff I can't put ads in, so we all know Netflix. And there's the whole layer. I mean, and even TV, VOD. I think many of Gen Xers were the ones who embraced the DVRs. Boomers and millennials, not so much. It's either I want to watch it now and I'll watch it now, or I'll watch it some other way. But it's interesting to me that TV content delivered on a digital platform is viewed as digital media, separate from TV, and yet it's that content that's drawing the eyeballs, and it becomes the layers of where is your audience overlapping, where are they different, which part of your audience is watching these programs in what space, and so there's a lot of conversation that says video anywhere. I'm not of the school that says the TrueView ad on YouTube is the same as the ad inserted into someone watching a program on an FEP, but the planning has to be there. But for whatever reason, digital people think TV delivered on a digital platform is no longer TV, and I think that's a fallacy as well. But TV delivered through your cable network is still planned and bought the same way, so it feels old school to some.
So everyone had one homework assignment for the thing. So the one homework assignment was, if you could get rid of one channel, traditional, new, whatever it was, could just make it disappear off the face of the earth, so that you didn't have to use it, your competition couldn't use it, it's just gone, poof. What would it be and why? So, and everyone, I think, is pissed off that I gave them this homework assignment.
It's really hard.
I was going to say silo channel, but that's not me being tongue-in-cheek. If it's one thing that we take away, it's again just to make sure that we're not operating in these types of silo channels in our businesses. But if I had to pick a specific channel, I'll probably choose the outbound call center for new leads.
Nice.
Reason for that is I don't respond to them. I rarely pick up calls once it's a scheduled call. And I feel like when there's an unresponsive audience, then more reasons to kind of eliminate or less invest in those channels. And hopefully by eliminating it, it'll help kind of marketers to use these existing channels to kind of better market their content.
All right, I'll go next. I sort of went with the paper route. I said FSIs or direct mail. because I feel like they're not adapting to sort of the way you operate. It's just sort of coming into your home uninvited. The direct mail piece, I will never have the coupon with me when I am actually at the store. So I would prefer it delivered to me digitally, and, you know, it does have the benefit of saving the environment.
Mine is DSP and programmatic, and the reason that I say that is I think a lot of people are not doing it well. You should get a driver's license before you can do it. And what I mean by that is it's so easy to buy now that people, you know, I've had clients that's like, I want to do programmatic buying, and I'm, you know, my target's women 25 to 54. And it's like, so why not just run a TV ad? Because I can do it better on TV. And I think, you know, the industry is doing a disservice. I teach graduate level marketing classes at New York University, and in one of the classes I asked how many people have ad blockers, and 20% of them had ad blockers. And these are people who are trying to get into the industry and are going to hopefully make money of getting into the industry who are blocking ads. And I think because there are so many bad ads that are not targeted to people coming, particularly over desktop and now mobile as well, I think it's almost doing a disservice. So provisionally, DSPs and programmatic.
Okay, so I am now feeling really good, because I was about to say I'm punting and give the answer I'm about to give, but thank you for giving me the doorway. So to that, the whole challenge is to say, I don't want to have to deal with this channel, and I don't want my competitors to either, is that we're not all on the same channels in the same space. And by the way, the agencies totally get to cheat, because no one's going to tweet that X person from this brand said this channel is horrible. So nobody gets to tweet that. Unless you do exactly what I just said, and that's not my fault. But to that, I would say what I want to have outlawed is this layer that says it's okay to put an interruptive ad model in a very intimate small screen environment. And as much as we badmouth marketers who have ad blockers, and I have thus far refrained, but I'm tempted, is when I want to click through and read an article, I start to read the article, and suddenly I can't read the article because some stupid auto expander ad, and I hope every single one of you who buys them feels really bad right now, is pushing the content out of my way. And then I finally get it to where I can read it again, and then it unexpands. And it's a horrible, horrible experience. And I think all of us as marketers need to absolutely understand it's one thing to put an interstitial in a natural break content. It's something entirely different to call it a good experience to hijack my page. Just because you call it a screen takeover doesn't mean it's not a pop-up ad. It is a pop-up ad, and you should be ashamed. But that interruptive model says marketers are only on my phone to get in my way, and I hate them, and I can't get what I want, and it takes too long. And then we have ad blockers, and it's our own fault. Back to Kate's point, you know, about the clutter we created, and the ad blocker situation we created, and the only way we're going to uncreate it is between delivering valuable content, like the plans of some of the publishers out there, and to refuse to be sold these ridiculously bad consumer experiences in ads that we place. No soapbox.
All right. Well, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. This will be the one moment I get on my soapbox. So the reason I started my agency is I kind of believe that there's too much one-to-one marketing, that there's too much targeting. We're losing touch of who the brand is. Like, we're not necessarily losing touch with the audience, but we're losing touch with our we're losing risk. Does that make sense?
You need to choose or the other. I think you have to do them both to make it a good brand experience. And so, you know, the targeting is really around the question of how, right? How do we market efficiently and apply proper credit? And that, again, is, you know, analytics, data is what drives the kind of targeting or the efficacy of targeting. But we also need to answer the question of why, right? So why do some audiences react a certain way on certain channels, and understand that kind of human psychology and sociology and bring that together with the data so that you're now understanding behaviors and channels and delivering creative messages where it really lands. So I think it's important to do both.
I've never heard it phrased that way. You might be kind of brilliant. Because here's one of the things I've run into working with third-party data providers and audiences is, as you go to identify your audience, what happens in every single case that I've come across is your targeting partners has started with an incredibly valuable, rich target based on discrete data points. And then there's the magic phrase of, but we modeled to get to scale. And by the time they've modeled it, you could buy women aged 25 to 54 and get exactly what they want to charge you more for because they modeled what was a smaller audience in order to get from 100,000 to 1 million. And the 1 million no longer looks like the 100,000 and doesn't perform as well. There is, and there's also, and which also brings you into when your clients push you to get reach. If the audience is really only 100,000 and they want reach, what you're buying is beyond that, and now you're really not going one-to-one, even if you're paying as if you were going one-to-one.
I'm going to speak a little bit to that. Reason is, I think third-party data just gets a bad rap. And rightfully so, because I think a lot of times companies use it in the wrong method. So if you look at third-party data sources as in DMPs, where it's a marketplace of this kind of audiences, think first, when did you ever get user-level data? Everything is in aggregates. So one, if it's in aggregates, you already are missing that kind of human one-to-one kind of signals of what makes you different from me. So I think that's key. And the way Magnetic has been doing it is we use third-party data, but we actually work directly with the sites, and we collect user-level data. So if you went to a travel site and searched for a location, for a hotel, that is prime data for a brand like yours versus somebody who's just kind of doing just very general travel searches, right? Maybe they're just on kind of travel content sites. And then secondly, I would say another big part about third-party data getting a bad rap is, a lot of times people buy them in marketplaces. So you buy these auto intenders in aggregates, but you're also buying it with thousands of other brands. It's very watered down. There's no really kind of need or objective to curate that data. Whereas we actually, because we bring in the data ourselves, we are curating on an ongoing basis, eliminating fraud. Because just as much as there's fraud in programmatic, there is that probably the same amount of prevalence in the data side. So it's important that you're constantly, auditing and curating the data with the real timeness to make it very actionable.
I agree with you that I think that the amount of data and one-to-one has clouded or beginning to cloud for a lot of brands who they are. The marketing funnel is the marketing funnel. It'll be the marketing funnel forever, and everybody tries to convince me that it's changed, it's compressed now, but you still have to do all of your jobs, top funnel as well as bottom funnel. And I think because we can measure bottom funnel now and one-to-one marketing more, people are paying attention to that, but you need to do that in the context of a brand positioning. And keeping people on strategy. I work with creative directors all day and writing brand positionings, and you have to kill 10 things a day. It's like, that's not on, it's not on strategy. Don't do it. That's out of tone. Don't write that way. And I think that's important as we get into this, answering the Twitters. What's the tone that you answer those Twitters in? Because it's really easy to get off message very quickly in a one-to-one marketing model.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I would add to that, I think 100%, there's kind of the funnel piece that maybe you've got, more high-level content that's going to be doing that. But as you get lower in the funnel, maybe there are different ways to actually create the content. So it's, you don't want to lose yourself, you talk about the creative, but in how are we partnering with, different, site we partner with different sites that actually help us to create content. Like if there's a need and we're doing this one-to-one, maybe we're leveraging partners to actually help us to create that content. So it's like we try to not get lost in the details and give some responsibility to those credible partners that we're working with so they can help us to bring the brand to life. So I think maybe it's understanding like the roles of the different pieces of content that we're putting out there and how one-to-one they all truly need to be.
I think from a time standpoint, we should ask any questions anyone has.
Yes, it is indeed time for questions with the audience before we break to roundtables. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, panel. Anybody got questions for the panel? None. Oh, there's one. Thanks, Omari.
I hope this isn't too off topic.
Oh, can you just tell us who you are real quick? No?
Still Melinda Krieger with Salesforce.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
You're never, didn't you hear earlier, you're never the same person.
I'm never the same person.
Times. You got to pay attention to these things.
I'm happy to say my name 100 times and I wouldn't remember anybody else's. Anyway, maybe this is off topic, but I'm wondering about content. So something I've been struggling with recently is, should your message should you, as one of my clients said, gently surround our customers with content of value, so everything's sort of focused on this main theme? Or should, departments be left to kind of do their own thing to adapt it to the medium that is part of their expertise? And then, if you want to all sort of be marching in the same direction, which makes a lot of sense to me, what happens when you're a big company that's got lots of competing messages and lots of priorities?
Is content not just advertising designed for the space in which it lives? That's a whole other summit. I think it is
We've
the
got
layer.
time.
No, I mean there is the layer. And as a brand, I'm not the only brand that says we struggle with what that means and how much of content and what type of content that's there. And I think the first layer is for the platforms and channels that you're in and the people you're talking to in those, what's the best way to do it? And in some cases, that's going to lead you to which type it's a informational content play, for example, as opposed to an advertising, or it's a content brought to you by strategy as opposed to an ad thing. But I really do think that it's intent and channel specific.
I think if you're doing content and various stakeholders within the company have the ability to do that, that you have to put some sort of rules around that, like using the same editors, the same directors, and the same tone in the writing. Because again, it's one of those things where if you let everybody go out and be a cowboy, you're going to have 10 different messages in the marketplace. And I've had a client that was an institutional bank, and they had a lot of different arms within the bank, and they had that going on where everybody was making content. It was out there, and you wouldn't have known that they were from the same company. And we made them all basically use the same directors and the same editors, which made it look like it was from the same company, and the same logo too. They were actually using different logos. So I think there has to be somebody who's kind of the content cop, so to speak.
I think also, there's a reason for a creative brief. A creative brief exists to align all creative, and I think from a content standpoint, there's a justification for messaging architecture. Like, if you have an umbrella message and you're 3 to 5 differentiation points, one of those differentiation points you can say in 50 different ways, but you're still laddering up to the same messaging to have the consistency. And yeah, so I think the messaging architecture is the safety valve that the creative brief is for creative. Any other questions?
No? All right. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, panel. That's it for that's it, everyone, for those. These are literally roundtable discussions that are